for my documentary, I did The Vanishing of the Bees, and it's a documentary focusing around colony collapse disorder. And we go to the next stage. It follows this offhand approach. We never really hear the.
Let's start again. Alright, we can keep going. Keep going.
Okay. So you only hear the narrator in between scenes, and they interview the people, but they don't actually take a hand in what's going on. So it's an offhanded approach. The documentary uses a fairy tale theme, which kind of gives the sense of the bees going or turning into a fairy tale, which is kind of what's happening. They interviewed from a lot of perspectives. You have mostly the commercial beekeepers who breed bees for their honey and for agriculture to make money off of, and then the holistic beekeepers who just kind of do it as a hobby, mostly just because they don't make any really money off of it. They also go around the globe to promote what's going on with the CD worldwide. And one of these, they went to France and Malaysia. And in France and Malaysia, well, particularly in France, they showed a environmentalist conference where they discussed the colony collapse disorder in the U.S. and how it affected France. Okay, so Vanishing of the Bees specifically attacks the systemic pesticides and the monocultures as the cause of CCD. Mostly because systemic pesticides are believed to damage the bees mentally and physically, not quickly, but over long periods of time throughout all the stages of a bee's life, particularly when they're in the larva stage. And what they believe this does is that because it damages the bees mentally and physically, they begin to abandon the hives because they lose their natural instincts and stuff like that. And they believe also that the monocultures are a part of the problem because since it's not a natural state, the documentary kind of goes on to the fact that perhaps this allows larger groups of pests to exist because they're able to find these huge acres of land where only one type of food grows, but this is the food that they thrive on. And so when the bees go there, they get infected easily by all the different pests that live in that ecosystem, even with the pesticides being used. The documentary also questions our care for the environment and the consequences of our actions on the environment by using these systemic pesticides and monocultures to grow our food. What exactly has this done to our environment, and could it be it's affecting the bees? Are we finally seeing the results of our carelessness? It also slightly goes into the fact that in France, systemic pesticides were used, but after a huge protest, they were banned in France, and the bees saw a recovery. And then we have this video.
think that for a lot of people, when they think about bees, they think about getting stuck. Honeybees are essential. They are essential if you want fruits, if you want vegetables, because they pollinate all of those crops.
A lot of people out there don't realize that 1 out of every 3 bites of food they stick in their mouth, these honeybees put on their dinner table.
And without bees taking pollen from one apple tree to another apple tree, you wouldn't get any apples. And we estimate that the value of honeybees is nearly $16 billion in the United States alone.
Something is killing our honeybees in staggering numbers. There's a name for what's happening, colony collapse disorder.
We're defining colony collapse as a condition where we see the rapid loss of the adult bee population.
There's the beehive these bee scientists found a couple days ago. It was full of bees. 3 hours later, nobody home. Something weird is going on here. Normally, when a hive of bees is dead, first thing that happens, the other bees come in and rob it out. And with this new phenomenon, the boxes are full of honey, and 100 yards away sits another yard of bees that won't even look at this stuff.
Ooh, well, that one's gone.
My take on colony collapse is it is one of the signs, the really unmistakable signs, that our food system is unsustainable.
Bees are an indicator of environmental quality. When the bees are dying, something's wrong.
We put agencies like the EPA in place to moderate the avarice of corporations, and they have not done it. Instead, they've been corrupted.
We're in a war, you know, and we're going to lose a percentage of our troops consistently. We're going to keep fighting.
We don't have to wait for the government to act on some of these issues. We can do something today.
We are going to try to save them so they won't disappear.
We are starting a biodynamic farm, and in the heart of the farm is a honeybee sanctuary.
Save our bees! Save our agriculture!
Don't show this on camera. You can look at it right here. Matter of fact, you got the camera off, turned off.
So you can see right there the effect that colony collapse disorder is having on our food and the people the beekeepers themselves. The largest and most destructive case of CCD was at one beekeeper's farm. The beekeeper lost 40,000 hives, or 2 billion bees. And just the agriculture that is pollinated by bees is worth almost $16 billion. And if we don't stop this problem, then the loss in the United States is going to be just massive. And all these people are going to lose their jobs. And we won't get crops like cranberries or almonds. So just some of the people who are affected are the beekeepers themselves, their family, and anyone who likes fruits and vegetables. Almost every fruit and vegetable needs some kind of animal to pollinate it, and usually this is the bee. So the documentary travels around the country and interviews beekeepers whose business is failing. And there's a lot of scenes where the beekeepers were just crying because in just a couple of weeks they had lost their entire business. And the documentary also traveled around the world, going to France, like I already said, and going to that convention. And they also went to Malaysia, where it looked at people who were still tribal people, but their whole culture was founded on finding beehives and getting that honey. It was like a test to become a man kind of thing. And if they lose honeybees, their entire culture would be devastated by that. And culture is also centered around bees since the Egyptians. I mean, for the Egyptians, bees and honey was considered the nectar of the gods to the Greek, Romans, and the Egyptians, and it was a really important gift to receive honey. That means you're really highly esteemed and worthy. And I mean, bees have always been a part of our culture, so there's also that aspect of losing a major piece of our culture, not just our food and business. So some of the speculated causes that I found while researching CCD was systemic pesticides, like the documentary said, and monocultures. But there's also some research that said that thought that these strange fragmented RNA in the stomach's bees were the cause. And then others were thought it was a combination of pathogen stress and pesticides. And another one said Israeli acute paralysis virus. And this is where it really starts getting complex with a lot of science-y talk that it was very difficult to understand and much more difficult to explain. But the final cause that I was able to find was a combination of invertebrate iridescent virus and the Nocerna virus in the RNA. Okay. Right now, it's currently believed that CCD is caused by a mixture of invertebrate iridescent virus and Nocerna virus. It causes some kind of mental and physical effect that causes the bees to actually leave in mass migration and die elsewhere. I found out that it turns out systemic pesticides aren't potent enough to cause the mass deaths of beehives. While they do hurt and kill bees, it's just not strong enough to kill up to 40,000 hives. The RNA fragments I found out turned out to not have any connection with the disease and was just a wild guess by researchers. And the Israeli acute paralysis virus turned out to have already been present in the United States before the epidemic. So researchers still haven't been able to find a cure or a certain cause of CCD, mostly because they have to use anthropology or something like that. But it's a type of science where you find the disease not by looking for symptoms or a certain virus or something, but by looking for something that isn't ordinarily there, which is extremely complex, considering that there haven't been really any major documentation of bees in general, just the type of pesticides they carry, pests that they carry, and other variables. So systemic pesticides and monocultures continue to damage the natural balance of nature. Well, what kind of damage would removing these factors do to the agriculture industry? Christopher?
Probably a lot of damage, Nicholas.
How so?
Because it would ruin a lot of farmers who depend on mass producing, I would guess.
That's good. But what about the damage to our bees?
Well, you just said earlier that the systemic pesticides weren't killing the bees.
Yes, they are. They're not the cause of CCD.
Well, they're not the cause of the big problem. I don't think people would be able to change.
Okay. That's the end.
All right.
Thank you for watching. And, alright, okay.